You're listening to Inside the Village, where all news is local and no topic is off limits.
So help me, Bob, it's bully in the alley. Hey, bully in the alley. So help me, Bob, it's
Welcome to Inside the Village, episode 21. Did you know that, 21?
I did, because you made such a big deal about 20 last week.
Well, I guess somebody's got to be the smartass. It's Inside the Village, brought to you by True North Mortgage, where you'll get great advice and save a pile of cash. You can find them online at truenorthmortgage.ca. How's it going?
I'm doing well, brother.
So, are you a fan of winter? I want to ask you that because this morning parts of the province woke up to some flurries.
You know, in the Sioux, it's funny, right? We talk, we're so famous for the color run, how beautiful the leaves are. And it is, it's gorgeous, right? And then in one day, it's gone. And you have that one windy night, and it's freezing cold. I woke up this morning, like every leaf is on the ground. It's like, well, so much for that.
I got home from the office yesterday, and I thought, I should rake some leaves because the yard was covered.
You don't rake your own leaves.
I know you think I have people for that. I am the people. I am the raker.
All right.
I don't know how the wind was gusting 70, 80, 90 kilometers an hour, and it didn't matter what direction I was raking the leaves, the wind would swirl and just blow them all over the place. It was a pain. And then, like we said this morning, wake up to some snow on the windshield. So,
did you rake the leaves in time to catch the Jays game?
Whoa, shots fired. No, I did not.
All right. We'll stop that conversation.
I usually get the leaf blower out and blow them onto my neighbor's lawn. But there was too much daylight. I couldn't do it yesterday. All right, let's get serious here. The first word to Frisco, you and the editorial team continuing to do some amazing work. Now, the next time that we sit in the studio and talk Inside the Village, the municipal election will have come and gone, and I know that your team is all ramped up and ready to provide some fantastic coverage.
For sure. I don't know. Is it silly to say that I'm excited about it? But I am excited about it. This is, elections are big deals in newsrooms. We treat them very seriously, and if you're reading your local site, you know that we've treated it extremely seriously. It's a very important time of the when the municipal elections roll around. Our coverage has been fantastic. If you haven't taken the time to read up on your candidates or understand the issues, you can go to our site, the main button on the top, Make Your Vote Count. You can click there for all our local coverage. And we've kind of done it all, and I've been really impressed. This is my first go-around with Village, right? And watching our great team work. And between the profiles of the candidates, between covering some of the serious issues, really holding some candidates to account, and then just covering the breaking news, the counselor who's been arrested or the counselor who's being sued or the counselor who's said some nasty things on Google, 10 years ago. I mean, these are relevant stories, and we've broken a lot of them, and it's been really fun to watch our team do what they do best.
And I got to imagine election time for a newsroom is kind of like, the Super Bowl or when your team, like the Tigers make the baseball playoffs. I mean, not this year.
Not any year, but
you know what I mean.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Some breaking news, some exciting news in addition to the Village family.
This is really exciting, too. We're announcing our 19th owned and operated site in Ontario, burlingtontoday.com, which is near and dear to my heart because I grew up in Hamilton right next door, and I know the community well. And I think that they are really going to love having a Village site there. I know we've just started with our Facebook page, I believe yesterday, and it's already getting a lot of engagement, a lot of people like and following. We've put our team together there. We're brainstorming story ideas. We're launching November 1st in Burlington, so just a heads up to everyone in that region of the province. We're really, really excited, and I think they're really going to be happy with having our journalists there doing what they do.
Absolutely. Very exciting news. I guess the biggest story across the Village footprint in the last week or so, the tragic shooting of 2 South Simcoe police officers. Yeah,
it's been devastating to watch, and our reporters have done a great job covering what is a very tragic story between trying to figure out what happened that night, the ongoing investigations, and then also paying tribute to the 2 officers who were killed. It's one of those issues, right? Because as journalists, especially local journalists, one of the organizations that we hold in check and hold to account are the police. Like they police our communities, and these are very brave men and women that do this job. But sometimes there's difficult stories. Sometimes there's mistakes that are made or whatever, and we cover those stories. People know that, right? But then when something like this happens, it reminds you that we all have someone connected to policing, whether it's a friend or family. I know I do. I have multiple relatives and friends who are police officers, and when you see those photos come up and of them in their uniform, it reminds you of Canadian soldiers that have died in the past. And they take that picture of them in the uniform. They're proud to be in that uniform, and sadly, as a journalist, I always wonder in the back of my head, does that go through their mind when they take this photo, that this is the photo that they would release if something terrible happened to them, because that's part of the business, it's part of the job they do. So yeah, really powerful things, powerful coverage coming out of our communities in Simcoe dealing with this issue. And we're going to talk about it today here on the podcast, too.
Yeah, we certainly are. The funeral of the two fallen police officers is coming up tomorrow in Barrie, and Peter Leon from the Barrie Police Service is going to join us. All right, the first word to Frisco. Thank you for that, pal. We'll be back right after this. Inside the Village, brought to you by True North Mortgage, where you'll get great advice and save a pile of cash. Find them online at truenorthmortgage.ca. Inside the Village returns right after this.
From newsmakers to celebrities to other prominent guests, you'll find them all on Village Media's new interview series, Up Close and Personal. Join host Scott Sexsmith as he goes one-on-one with well-known Canadians to hear their story. Up Close and Personal. Look for it on your favorite Village Media website across Ontario.
Welcome back to Inside the Village, brought to you by True North Mortgage. True North Mortgage, where you'll get great advice and save a pile of cash. You can find them online at truenorthmortgage.ca. With Michael Friscolanti, editor-in-chief here at Village Media, I'm Scott Sexsmith. It has been a grueling stretch of days in the South Simcoe area in our province. We're joined by retired OPP officer and now civilian employee with the Barrie Police Service, Peter Leon. Peter, we certainly appreciate you taking the time to speak to us during what I can only imagine has been a difficult stretch of days for you folks.
It has been, and I do thank you for this opportunity. I think certainly the events which have taken place almost a week ago to the very day today, it's something that has affected our area, our community, and has certainly had a very significant impact on our policing neighbors to the South Simcoe Police Service. And I think it's important for the public to understand how these type of occurrences not only impact the policing community, but the community that these officers sacrificed and gave their lives in. These were not just members of the community. These were two officers who were involved in their community and contributed a lot to the safety and security of the people in the communities of Innisfil and Bradford.
I agree, and thanks for that, Peter. You're a retired OPP officer yourself, a longtime police officer. Now you are a civilian employee with the Barrie Police Services. You work in the communications department, so you deal with people like us. You deal with reporters a lot of times who give you a call. Maybe we can start from the beginning. Peter, how did you first hear of this incident when it unfolded on Tuesday night?
Well, I was at home. I was off duty, and we carry our phones with us wherever we go. And I received an email message from one of our media outlets here in the Barrie area, following up on some information that they had heard. Now, unfortunately, there was a great deal of misinformation that was taking place at the time things were starting to unfold. And information was initially received that it was, and the email I got was that our officers were involved from the Barrie Police Service. I very quickly started to make some phone inquiries to find out the validity of the inquiry. And it was a short time later that I was able to confirm that we were providing assistance at that time to members of the South Simcoe Police Service who had just been involved in a very, very serious incident in their area. In fact, we had officers on scene within 9 to 10 minutes, from what I understand, of that call for assistance going out.
Peter, as a longtime police officer, what goes through your mind? What are the emotions when you get those phone calls?
It's a wave of emotion. I've been in this profession. I'm in my 35th year, and I've seen a lot of death, unfortunately, with respect to officers who have been killed in the line of duty. It brings back emotion from a lot of those occurrences. Whether I knew the officers or not, it brings you back to the ones that you do know. But first and foremost, you want to try to find out, in this case, who was involved and are they okay? When you hear reports that firearms are involved, obviously, we know the outcome only too realistically as to what can happen. And like I say, there was a lot of information flowing very, very quickly. A lot of media outlets were reaching out, trying to find information. And we respect that. That's part of the information gathering process and getting information out there. But we also knew that there was misinformation out there, and we needed to correct that right away. So again, we turned to social media, and we just provided a very simple message that we were providing assistance to South Simcoe Police with an ongoing incident. At that point, I did have some information that led me to believe that more than likely there would be an invocation by the Special Investigations Unit. So again, information was limited to what could be said, and we respect that mandate that was invoked and the investigation that they are carrying out. So we really can't get into specific details surrounding the incident itself, but I think when it comes to these type of things, law enforcement, we're a family, and we look out for one another. And right away, you start reaching out, trying to find out if there's anything that you can do. And we're very fortunate that our neighbors to the south, we know a lot of the officers down there. And one of the first point of contacts that I made was to the communications coordinator for South Simcoe Police, Sue Scambatti, who is a well-known name in the world of media, done a great job over the years promoting the men and women of that service. And I reached out to her on behalf of the Barrie Police and offered any assistance that we could provide her right away. Again, when something like this happens, you have to support everybody. And I knew she was going to be busy based on my previous experiences as well.
How long did it take that evening, amidst all the news that was breaking, all the information you were getting? How long did it take for you to hear that it had been 2 officers who tragically had lost their lives?
It took a mere matter of minutes. My phone calls required me to contact our service here, and I immediately got in touch with our. I tried connecting with our on-duty staff sergeant, and eventually I was able to get through to my supervisor, who was able to provide me with information at that time. So I think that the information that we were receiving was very accurate, most importantly, because we were involved and we were asked to provide that assistance. So, we had the officers that were there being able to report back directly, and we were involved with the County of Simcoe Paramedic Services in helping get those officers to hospital here in Barrie, hopefully for the medical attention that they needed. However, as we know, one was eventually airlifted to the Toronto Area Trauma Center, where he passed away. But unfortunately, the incidents that transpired were very deadly, and there was, very little that could be done to save the lives of our esteemed colleagues.
What struck me about it too, Peter, was, a lot of people, I have family and friends who are all in policing, who are police officers in different parts of the country. And what struck me about it is it's easy for the public to say, well, this was a routine call. Police officers get called to houses all the time. They get called to scenes all shift long. That's what you do for a living. And I'm just wondering if you can help people understand, as someone who wore the uniform for a long, long time, how much that weighs on you. Because every time you get a call, every time you go to serve a member of the community at their house or at a scene, it could turn violent like this one. It doesn't happen often, doesn't happen every time, but it can. Can you speak to that? Is that something that even after all those years you were as a police officer, that it weighed on you every day?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, I think that the public has to understand that there is no such thing as a routine call. Every call is unique in its own way, whether it's a response for a theft of a bicycle, a break and enter, whether you're responding to a person who has been a victim of an assault, or a more serious crime such as having to go and knock on somebody's door to do a death notification. These are all types of calls that are unique, and you have to treat each and every call independently of any other call that you've ever responded to. I think the thing that people need to realize is 9 times out of 10, we probably don't know the person who we're responding to that residence for, unless we've had dealings with them in the past. I think that, we're very fortunate in law enforcement that our call takers and dispatchers are relaying very valuable information to us as we're responding to these calls, so that if there has been previous calls for service, that we know or have a bit of an idea what we may be walking into. But like I say, the majority of the time, these are individuals who are reaching out for assistance, and we don't know who they are. It makes it difficult. And I know I've heard the term routine call for service many times. And that's something, as a communications person and somebody that has been dealing in corporate communications for many years, I try to correct, because in policing, there is no such thing as a routine call. That next call could be a very serious occurrence. And certainly that's what we saw last Tuesday evening.
Peter, speaking of who they are, we know that it was Constable Morgan Russell and Devon Northrup. But what can you tell us about them as people, as individuals?
Well, these were officers that were committed to law enforcement and the safety of their community. I knew Morgan Russell. I'd had the opportunity through a former neighbor of mine to get to know him a number of years ago. We had played in some golf tournaments and known each other socially off duty. Certainly hadn't seen him in many years, but he was the type of person that I know if I bumped into him in a hallway somewhere and said, "Hey, Morgan," he'd be able to say, "Hey, Peter, how's it going?" We knew of each other certainly that way. He was a husband. He was a father. He had 2 adult daughters. And you know what? He made a huge contribution, 33 years in law enforcement, providing safety to the citizens of Innisfil and Bradford as a member of the South Simcoe Police Service. He was very involved in all aspects of the job. He was a crisis negotiator. He was a member of their emergency response team. He was a guy that went to work and he did his job, and he did his job well. And he did his job to the best of his ability each and every day he went to work. Now, Devon, I didn't know Devon, but I know colleagues of mine here at Barrie Police that ran with him on the run to Ottawa. And he did that, I believe, for the last 3 or 4 years. And he was a veteran of the South Simcoe Police Service, where he had worked for the past 6 years. He was involved with Sue Scambatti. He did little short videos to educate the community on how to stay safe. He was on their crisis response team that deals specifically with calls pertaining to mental health. And he was also involved with the Mothers Against Drunk Driving program. So again, 2 officers from different walks of life, different spectrums of experience, but officers that we know will never be forgotten, first and foremost. And we're doing that right now by planning and preparing for a send-off that this part of the province will have never seen before at any point in time. And I think that, it's a difficult topic to speak about. It's going to be a very difficult day for law enforcement to say goodbye to 2 heroes, 2 heroes in life, not death.
I can't remember a funeral where there were 2 officers at the same time. Have you ever experienced that before, Peter?
No. Thinking back, the last time something like this happened, it occurred in the Toronto Police Service, and I believe it happened with 2 detectives that worked over in 32 Division. It might have been back in the early 80s before I came on the job, but certainly in the time that I've been in law enforcement, I don't recall a funeral like this. Certainly we've seen them in different parts of Canada where there's been a number of officers killed in the line of duty. Obviously the RCMP out in Mayerthorpe, Alberta, a number of years ago. That's right. As well as others. But no, this one is certainly one that this hits very close to home, as I've said. And, I know the men and women of the Barrie Police Service, both sworn and civilian, we're doing everything that we can to contribute to making this funeral what it needs to be and give these officers the proper send-off that they deserve. I will add also that the Ontario Provincial Police is doing a very significant part with respect to the organization behind this funeral. And York Regional Police is also Chief Van Dyke from the South Simcoe Police asked them to step in and conduct the investigation, which will parallel that of the Special Investigations Unit. So there's a lot of police services working behind the scenes here, dealing with perhaps two of the most horrific crimes that law enforcement ever has to deal with, and that's the death of two of our own.
Peter, I know that you've spent some time recently with one of our great reporters out of Barrie today, Sean Gibson, and thank you for that. And I believe you described to Sean, as you did just here moments ago, that this will be unlike any event that the city of Barrie has seen. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for us and tell us what you mean by that and what it might look like?
Well, we're just shy of 2 days away from probably the biggest funeral that the city will have ever seen in its history. We are expecting, the route has not been released as to the manner in which the officers will be brought to the Sadlon Arena, but we expect that route to be probably filled with citizens who are deeply concerned and care about what happened. We expect upwards between 6,000 or more police officers right across Ontario and Canada and perhaps even North America to be descending upon our city very, very shortly. So there's a huge task there, first and foremost, to get them to the venue. And a lot of them will be arriving from out of town. So we're, working very closely with a number of hotels in the area to certainly provide them with lodging and accommodation. But again, there's a lot of logistics that are at play here. And, we've seen the media descend upon our city here for other events, most recently as last summer with the Barrie tornado. But this is a situation which is extremely different. And this is something that I know law enforcement officers right across this country are making every possible arrangement to be here for. And again, we have to express great appreciation to the members of our community who are going to be perhaps impacted by this as well. It's going to mean that they're going to have to readjust their travel plans perhaps on Thursday in and around the area of the Sadlon Arena due to road closures and whatnot. But we do appreciate the fact that, that we are able to host this funeral celebration of life for these officers and recognize, most importantly, the sacrifices that they have made.
Definitely a sacrifice that's difficult to put into words, Peter. You mentioned the investigations. There's a special investigations unit that's conducting investigation. You mentioned the York Regional Police is also doing an investigation. So we will get some answers in time. Today's maybe not the time for those answers, but we'll hear some detailed information about what happened that night and what caused this. I guess my question for you is, as a longtime law enforcement official, do we accept that this kind of tragedy is just part of the job? I mean, it is a dangerous job that you and your colleagues do. Or are there things that maybe we as a society can be doing or politicians can be doing, should be thinking about, that maybe could lessen the possibility of this happening again?
I think every person who is called to a career in law enforcement, and it is a calling. Mm-hmm. Policing in Canada is a profession. It's a noble profession. It's a respected profession. And I think if you are called to be a member of the law enforcement community and you are in a sworn capacity where you are in uniform, you know that there's risks, and you know that there is that possibility that the next time you put on the uniform might be the last. And we cherish the fact that when we say goodbye to our families or reach out to them before your children go to bed, that it could be the last time that we say that. And, I think that these officers, in fairness, they were out doing their job, and that's what we do. We put on that uniform every day. We go out in those cars, we respond to calls for service, and then we come back and do it all over again. Why? Because we love what we do. We do it for the people that we serve, and we are committed to our communities. And we know that there is the possibility that there is a risk that is associated with this job, and there is a possibility that we may not return home at the end of our shift.
Peter, before we let you go, is there anything that we didn't ask you or any information that you'd like to convey to our audience that we didn't touch on?
Well, I'd like to touch on the fact, if I could, there has been an incredible outpouring of support. And I know that Acting Chief Van Dyke from South Simcoe Police has spoken to this. Certainly, we have seen it here in our own building. Just yesterday, I had a couple come in. He's a retired member of the Ontario Provincial Police, and they had 2 gifts for the families. You know, and I know South Simcoe Police has had people dropping by cards. I've been in their building. I've seen the beautiful flowers, the appreciation, the food that's been dropped off. You know, I think that the words thank you sometimes in situations like this are hardly enough. But to the community members of Innisfil and Bradford, we know this is a difficult time for you, but I know from where the South Simcoe Police have stood up and said they appreciate so much the support that they have received from their community, the love, the outpouring, the kindness, the support. I could go on, but you know, this is a tragedy that has affected and impacted them as well. And it's important to note that there are resources that are available in our community, in their community as well. And we know that this will have an impact for months, years to come. And the public needs to know that there are resources available for them as well. So if anybody is impacted by this, I encourage you, reach out to your local police service. Every police service has victim services who can meet with you, can talk with you, and it's okay to feel the pain. Because I think it's a pain that whether you knew the officers or not, we all feel it. We all look at our police the same way as people who keep our community safe and protect us from evil that is out there. And, you know, the officers, when you see them, give them a wave, give them a hello, say thank you. It will make their day. I know anytime that I received a kind gesture from any member of the public, it always put a smile on my face and made me want to come back and continue doing the job that I did so proudly for so many years.
Peter Leon from the Barrie Police Service. Peter, you're right. Thanks hardly seems enough, but we will say thanks to you and to countless others for your service, and we'll certainly be thinking of you this coming Thursday. Thanks for doing this today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Reporters, editors, and journalists who go the extra mile to get the story and get it right. Go behind the scenes with those who cover the stories that matter most to you and your community. Look for it in the Village Features section of your favorite Village Media website across Ontario.
Back to wrap on Inside the Village, brought to you by True North Mortgage. True North Mortgage, where you'll get great advice and save a pile of cash. TrueNorthMortgage.ca. Man, I cannot imagine the emotion that's going to be exuded coming up tomorrow at the Sadlon Arena and other areas across the city of Barrie, as Constables Morgan Russell and Devon Northrup are laid to rest. And again, our thanks to Peter Leon. I can't imagine. His phone likely has not stopped ringing or buzzing since all of this took place.
For sure. I think it's important to point out that I don't think a lot of members of the public understand. Peter's the communications officer for the Barrie Police Service, right? So whenever there's big news in Barrie, his phone blows up from guys like me. Reporters are texting and calling and wondering, trying to find information. And there's a lot of different media outlets that are going after him. So what you don't often see is a chance to have a long, in-depth conversation with a guy like him, because it's usually you're on tight deadline. You're trying to figure out that piece of information to put in your story that you're filing. So to be able to hear him talk about, you know, being a former officer, that idea of you know, that no calls are routine. We know that already. We hear that all the time, but actually listen to someone like him tell that and speak to that was pretty powerful. Yeah,
and he brings an interesting perspective as a uniformed officer and now a civilian employee with the police service. But I can't imagine the thoughts that go through your head every time, you know, an officer is called to a situation what goes through their head? Are they wondering, could this be, that call? And I can't imagine. But good of him to spend the time with us that he did. Okay, coming up Monday, election, voting day.
Election, get out there and vote. All the more reason to remember what a free society we live in, the rules that we have, the democracy we enjoy. Get out there and vote. It drives me crazy when people say they haven't cast their ballot. This is your city you're living in. Take the 5 minutes, go there, cast your ballot, because you can't whine about it later if you don't.
I was just going to say, if you don't take the time to vote, you can't take the time to complain.
That's right.
All right. Get out there and exercise your civic right and your civic duty. That's a wrap. Thanks, pal. We'll do it again next Wednesday right here.
Sounds good. You have my vote, Scott.
You're too kind. Michael Friscolanti, editor-in-chief at Village Media. Join us again next week. By the way, you can catch back episodes of the podcast at insidethevillage.ca, wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and, of course, across the Village Media Network. For Frisco, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll talk to you next week.
You've been listening to Inside the Village.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe, provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.